Hello, Brandon here, and I'm going to show you how to make smoke in Blender 2.61. So let's get started. So we have our main cube here. Let me ask this out here. Okay. So we have our main cube here, and basically this main cube is going to be our domain object for smoke. Smoke essentially acts like a mix of fluid and particles. It's quite odd how it works. All I know is it just works. So we're going to scale our cube on the z-axis by 5 so we can have our smoke rising up quite a lot. On the x-axis by 2 and on the y-axis by 2 as well. We're also going to grab it on the z-axis and hit 5. Now we have our base object, our domain. So hit Z, I'm going to go into wireframe mode and I'm going to add a circle. I'm going to move the circle up. Actually, before you do that, make sure you select fill. Okay, so we're going to move our circle up. We're doing this because we don't want our emitter object, which is our circle here, anywhere near our domain object, because it will, for some reason, the smoke will go crazy. Nobody knows why. It's just it might be a bug. It's just the way it is. So you want to make sure that your emitter object is not touching or anywhere near your domain object. Okay, so let's start positioning our light. So I'm going to go into the side view. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to position it right about there. And I'm going to hit 7, top view, and position it right about there. Now we have a light at the base of our smoke, so we have a light source so I can actually see our smoke. So let's select our emitter object, go into the particle tab, hit the plus symbol, and type in smoke for the name. We're going to bump up the number of particles to 40k, and we are going to have our start and end at the same as it is right now. Our lifetime is going to be about 25. Go ahead and give it a random lifetime of about 0.25. Make sure it is, well, actually, in this case, it doesn't really matter because it's a circle and we have one vertex in the middle. Or vertex, I'm sorry. Okay, so that looks good. We're also going to give this emitter object a starting speed on the z-axis of about 1.75. Now we're going to tell Blender that we have this as a part of a smoke simulation, but first I actually forgot one thing. We want to turn off gravity altogether because this is smoke, and smoke, because it's so not dense, it is barely affected by gravity at all, if any. Okay, so we're going to now tell Blender that our cube is the domain object and our circle is the emitter object. We go into the physics tab by doing this, or to do that we go into our physics tab and we select our circle, hit smoke and flow. Make sure initial velocity is checked. Initial velocity gives the smoke a starting speed, that same starting speed as the particle settings. So it just wafts our smoke up, and it looks quite nice. Now we're going to select our cube, go into the physics tab, hit smoke, and domain. I'm going to bump this up, the resolution here, I'm going to bump that up to about 80. I'm going to make sure dissolve is on, otherwise we're going to have a bunch of smoke, kind of gathering at the top here. I'm actually going to bring my emitter object down. I think it might be okay. We want to check smoke high resolution. Smoke high resolution just puts a kind of like a high resolution image on the outside of the smoke that makes it more wavy. I'm going to make the noise method. That's how wavy it's going to be. How noisy. It does make it look quite nice. I'm going to bring it up to 3.5. And I'm not going to focus on smoke cache. in this tutorial. It's basically the same thing as caching anything in Blender. You just give it a place to go and make sure you have your file saved here and hit Bake All Dynamics and it will cache it for you. So you have it there and you don't have to have it bake every time you hit Alt-A to render it out or to play it. Okay, that's enough small talk. Okay, so we have our smoke now, and we're going to go ahead and Alt-A this. So as you can see, we've got smoke wafting up here, and it's quite exciting. It's a newer feature of Blender, and I'm really happy to see that we have a smoke simulator now. It's quite exciting. So we have smoke here. I do see one problem with it though. We need to get rid of that normal value. It's kind of wafting out way too much. We just want it to go up, and that's about it. We want to bring the lifetime down to about 10 now, and we're going to bump this up to 5. So okay, so that's much better. So as you can see, our smoke is wafting up here quite quickly. I'm going to bring that down 1. Lifetime, I'll do 5. Let's try this again. I'm just trying to get right settings. I'm also doing this so you guys can get these settings here. This is basically how you control your smoke. Keep in mind though, the smoke does move independently. It doesn't completely depend on the particles to move. What it does is it depends on the particles to get a initial value of velocity, and it also depends on the particles to be actually emitted into the domain object. But that's basically all they need. The particles for they just kind of use some kind of technology to 3D render out, which is quite amazing. Okay, so you can actually see that this smoke is 3D in our domain object. It is not just a flat image, it is literally 3D. It's quite cool. It's like a volumetric. Okay, so I'm going to position my camera because we're going to render this out now. Making smoke in Blender is quite easy, but rendering out is a little tricky. Once you know it, it's a lot easier. So we're going to, I just positioned my camera. The little trick I know for positioning the camera is quite cool. You hit Control Alt Numpad 0 and your camera snaps right to the same view you are in with the 3D view port. Also, you can hit Shift F and go into fly mode and kind of control how you see things there. And that's just basically how you touch up your camera. It's also very useful for camera animation. Okay, so I've said too much, and let's go into our material settings and make a new material. Hit volume. The density needs to be 0 because I'll show you what happens when you have a density of 1. You basically render out a solid cube, and it does not look good. It's not smoke. So you need a density scale of 0, or a density of 0, and a density scale of 2. We also need to bring the step size down to 0.01. The lower you bring this down, it cannot go to 0. It's not possible. It can go to 0.001, and that's it. You can't go any lower than that. But I like 0.01 because it really doesn't matter down to there. It's quite good looking at this. Basically, the higher this is, your smoke is going to be very noisy. It's going to have a lot of dots and stuff in it. It just doesn't look good. So this basically, the lower this step size is, the more steps it's going to go over with the rendering. Okay, so let's add a texture. And make sure you are adding this volumetric data to our our domain object here, what's highlighted in orange here, because the smoke simulator uses the cube domain object to render out the smoke. Basically, it takes this 3D data that we have of the smoke here and then applies a flat texture over the box to just simulate, according to the 3D viewport, what our smoke would look like in a 2D image. Okay, so let's add a texture, and this is going to be voxel data. This is all new, or a newer thing. We're going to hit domain object. Voxel data is for smoke. That's what they have it there for. As you can see right here, there is a preview of the smoke. So we're going to check density and uncheck emission. And that is just about it. So we can go ahead and render our smoke now. Hit F12. And you can see, voila, we have smoke. But we do have one big problem. It is rendering out the halos. So we need to uncheck emitter and hit none. We also, okay. Also, smoke looks a lot better with horizon color black. So let's render this out again. Okay, so as you can see, we have some nice looking smoke. And if this were to animate, it would look even nicer. So, thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. This is Brandex96 signing out. Once again, my tutorials are can be found on my website, www.blendermind.com. More tutorials are going to be shown there quite soon. So, thank you, and have a nice day.